A pregnant woman walks into a courtroom expecting the fight of her life. What she does not expect is for her husband's mistress to kick her in the belly in front of 50 witnesses. But here is where it gets interesting. The billionaire husband defends his mistress. He calls his wife crazy. He threatens to take her baby. He even plays her private therapy recordings for the entire courtroom to hear. He thinks he has won.
Miss Mercer,
He has no idea
the
that
man
the
you
judge
believe
watching from the
abandoned you
bench
is standing
about
right
to
here.
destroy everything he has built.
I am
Because
your
that
father.
judge is not just any judge. He is her father. The father she thought had abandoned her 30 years ago. The father who has been waiting his entire life for this moment. What happens next will shock you. A mistress with a deadly secret. A mother who betrays her own daughter. A billionaire who may have committed murder. And a twist in the final minutes that nobody sees coming. This is not just a divorce story. This is a war. Stay until the end, because the last 5 minutes will change everything you thought you knew. The fluorescent lights in the courthouse bathroom hummed with an almost musical quality. Olivia Mercer stood at the sink, her hands gripping the cold porcelain so tightly her knuckles had turned white. She was 7 months pregnant, and the weight of her belly pulled at her back, but that discomfort was nothing compared to the weight pressing against her chest. She stared at her reflection in the mirror. Dark circles under her eyes told the story of sleepless nights. Her cheeks had grown hollow despite the pregnancy weight elsewhere. She barely recognized the woman looking back at her. My mother once told me that the strongest women are the ones who cry behind closed doors. For 29 years, I believed her. I cried in bathroom stalls at charity events while my husband charmed donors. I cried in walk-in closets while he screamed that I was imagining things. I cried in parking lots, in doctor offices, in the shower where no one could hear me. But my mother was wrong. The strongest women are not the ones who hide their tears. The strongest women are the ones who walk out of that bathroom, face their abuser in front of the whole world, and refuse to let him see them break. Olivia reached into her bra and pulled out a small flash drive. It looked so ordinary, so insignificant. But this tiny piece of plastic contained 8 months of evidence, 5 years of documented abuse, every text message, every threatening voicemail, every photograph of hidden bruises she had told herself were accidents. One chance, that is all I have. One chance to prove that the man everyone sees as a philanthropist and a family man is actually a monster wearing an expensive suit. She tucked the flash drive back into her bra, took a deep breath, and straightened her shoulders. The blue maternity dress she wore was simple but dignified. She had chosen it carefully. Nothing too expensive that might make her look like a gold digger. Nothing too plain that might make her look like a victim seeking pity. Just a woman, a mother, a survivor. She pushed open the bathroom door and stepped into the hallway. The Fulton County Superior Court in Atlanta was already buzzing with activity. Reporters clustered near the courtroom doors, cameras ready. This divorce case had captured national attention. A billionaire real estate developer, a pregnant wife, rumors of infidelity with a younger woman. It was exactly the kind of scandal that sold newspapers and generated clicks. Olivia walked slowly toward the courtroom, one hand resting protectively on her belly. She could feel her baby moving inside her, restless and anxious, as if sensing the tension in her mother's body. It is going to be okay, little one. Mama is going to fight for both of us today. No matter what happens in that courtroom, I promise you will never grow up thinking your mother was weak. Her attorney met her at the door. Margaret Sullivan, known to everyone as Maggie, was a woman in her mid-50s with silver-streaked hair and a reputation that made opposing counsel nervous. She specialized in high-asset divorces, particularly those involving abuse. She had taken Olivia's case 8 months ago, and in that time, she had become not just a lawyer, but a lifeline. Maggie leaned close, her voice barely above a whisper. Remember what we discussed. Do not react to anything he says. Narcissists feed on reaction. They need to see they are affecting you. Starve him of that satisfaction. Olivia nodded, her throat too tight for words. Maggie squeezed her arm gently. You have survived 5 years of marriage to that man. You have gathered evidence while living under his roof. You have protected your baby while fighting for your freedom. Olivia, you are the strongest client I have ever represented. Do not let him make you forget that. They pushed through the heavy wooden doors and entered the courtroom. The room was larger than Olivia expected, with high ceilings and tall windows that let in the gray morning light. Wooden benches filled with spectators lined both sides of the center aisle. Reporters sat in a designated press section, notebooks and recording devices ready. At the defense table, Adrian Cole sat reviewing documents with his attorney as if this were a routine business meeting rather than the dissolution of a 5-year marriage. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. His dark hair was perfectly styled. His posture radiated confidence and control. He glanced up as Olivia entered, and their eyes met for just a moment. His expression was not angry or hostile. It was worse than that. It was pitying. The look of a man who had already decided he had won. That look. I used to think it meant he loved me differently than other men love their wives. That his distance was just how successful men showed affection. That if I tried harder, cooked better, dressed prettier, kept the house cleaner, maybe he would finally look at me the way he looked at his business deals. Now I understand. That look was never love disguised as something else. It was contempt. He never saw me as his partner or his equal. He saw me as a possession, an acquisition, a trophy that had tarnished and needed to be replaced. Olivia forced herself to look away from him. She would not give him the satisfaction of seeing her affected. She followed Maggie to the plaintiff and carefully lowered herself into a chair. The gallery continued filling with spectators. Some were reporters, some were curious members of the public drawn by the scandal. A few were society acquaintances who had come to witness the fall of a woman they had once pretended to befriend. But one face caught Olivia's attention. A woman she did not recognize sat in the third row, watching her with an intensity that felt almost protective. She was in her mid-40s, elegantly dressed, with auburn hair and green eyes that held something Olivia could not quite identify. Pain, perhaps, or recognition. Who is she, Olivia wondered? And why is she looking at me like she knows exactly what I am feeling? Before she could dwell on the question, a sound cut through the murmur of the courtroom. The sharp click of high heels against marble. Everyone turned to look. Sabrina Hart had arrived. She walked down the center aisle like a model on a runway, her short red dress completely inappropriate for a courtroom setting. Diamond earrings caught the light with every step. Her perfume, something expensive and overwhelming, preceded her like an announcement. She was 28 years old, a former Instagram influencer who now called herself a lifestyle consultant. She had been sleeping with Olivia's husband for nearly 3 years, since just 6 months after the wedding, and she made absolutely sure that Olivia saw her coming. Sabrina paused as she passed the plaintiff table, close enough that Olivia could smell her perfume. She leaned down slightly, her voice a poisonous whisper meant only for Olivia's ears. Love what pregnancy has done to your face, darling. Olivia felt her jaw tighten, but she did not respond. She kept her eyes forward, her hands folded on the table. Maggie leaned close. That is the trash taking itself out. She will hang herself before this is over. Just watch. As if on cue, Sabrina's stiletto heel caught on the carpet. She stumbled slightly, nearly losing her balance before catching herself with an awkward grab at a nearby bench. Her face flushed with embarrassment before she recovered, flipping her hair and continuing toward Adrian as if nothing had happened. A few spectators stifled laughter. Someone in the gallery muttered something about karma. Small victories, Olivia thought. I will take them where I can find them. Sabrina reached Adrian and draped herself across the chair beside him, one hand possessively on his arm. He did not look at her. His eyes remained fixed on his documents, treating her presence the same way he had always treated Olivia's, as something to be tolerated rather than treasured. But Sabrina did not seem to notice. She was too busy shooting triumphant glances toward Olivia, too busy flaunting her position as the winner of a competition Olivia had never wanted to enter. You think you have won, Olivia thought. You think you are getting the prize. But you are just getting the next shift in a prison you do not even know you have entered yet. The bailiff stepped forward, his voice cutting through the noise of the gallery. All rise. The Honorable Judge Harrison Wells presiding. Everyone stood, and moaned. Olivia braced one hand on the table to push herself up, her other hand on her belly. The door behind the bench opened, and a tall figure in black robes emerged. Olivia looked up at the judge, and her entire world tilted on its axis. She knew that face, not from television or newspapers, not from any public appearance. She knew it from a photograph she had found in her mother's drawer when she was 12 years old. A photograph her mother had ripped into pieces when she caught Olivia looking at it. The photograph of the man her mother said had abandoned them when Olivia was 3. The man who had chosen his career over his daughter. The man Olivia had spent her entire life hating. Her father. Judge Harrison Wells took his seat behind the bench, his eyes scanning the courtroom with practiced authority. And when his gaze reached Olivia, she saw it. The flicker of recognition. The flash of pain. The momentary crack in his judicial mask before it sealed shut again. He knows who I am, Olivia realized. He knows exactly who I am. And he is not recusing himself from this case. Is this a gift or a trap? Judge Harrison Wells settled into his chair behind the bench, his expression carefully neutral. But Olivia had seen that flicker in his eyes, that moment of recognition, and now she could not stop watching him, searching for any sign of what he was thinking. He was 62 years old now, his hair silver, his face lined with age. But she could still see the man from the photograph, the man her mother had taught her to hate. Your father chose his career over us, her mother had said countless times. He did not want the burden of a family. He did not want you. Olivia had believed that story for 30 years, had shaped her entire identity around being the unwanted daughter, had married Adrian partly because he seemed so different from the absent father she imagined. Adrian had pursued her relentlessly, showered her with attention, made her feel chosen. Only later did she learn that narcissists are very good at pursuit. It is keeping them interested that proves impossible. Maggie touched her arm gently. Olivia, are you all right? You look pale. Olivia forced herself to look away from the judge. I am fine, just nervous. But her mind was racing. Why was her father presiding over this case? Surely he would have recognized her name on the docket. Any ethical judge would have recused himself from a case involving his own daughter. Unless he did not care about ethics. Unless this was some kind of manipulation. Or unless there was something she did not understand. Judge Wells cleared his throat. This court is now in session. We are here for the matter of Cole versus Cole, petition for dissolution of marriage and determination of custody and asset division. Are both parties present and represented by counsel? Maggie stood. Yes, Your Honor. Margaret Sullivan representing the petitioner, Olivia Mercer Cole. At the defense table, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit rose to his feet. Gerald Vance stood for the respondent. Adrian Cole, Your Honor. Judge Wells nodded. Very well, Mr. Vance, you may deliver your opening statement. Gerald Vance buttoned his jacket and walked toward the center of the courtroom with the confidence of a man who had won many battles like this one. He was in his mid-50s with sharp features and cold eyes. His reputation preceded him. He was known for winning at any cost, using any tactic, destroying anyone who stood in his client's way. Olivia had researched him thoroughly. She knew what she was up against. Vance turned to face the gallery, playing to the cameras as much as to the judge. Your Honor, this case is a tragedy. Not the tragedy my opposing counsel will try to sell you, but a different kind. The tragedy of a man who loved his wife, who tried everything to save his marriage, only to be rewarded with accusations and betrayal. Olivia felt her stomach turn. She gripped the edge of the table, willing herself to remain still. Vance continued, his voice smooth and practiced. Adrian Cole is not just a successful businessman. He is a philanthropist who has donated millions to charities across this city. A pillar of the community. A man who opened his heart in his home to a woman who came from nothing, who gave her everything, and who watched helplessly as she descended into paranoia and emotional instability. That is what he is doing, Olivia realized. He is setting the narrative before I can even speak, making me the villain before I can tell my truth. Vance paced slowly, letting his words sink in. My client tried counseling. He tried giving her space. He tried understanding. But nothing was enough for Mrs. Cole. Her jealousy became obsessive. Her accusations became irrational. Her behavior became erratic and concerning. He paused dramatically. We are not here to punish a troubled woman. We are here to protect a man who has been victimized by false accusations and to ensure that the child Mrs. Cole carries will be raised in a safe and stable environment. The implication was clear. He was already laying groundwork to take her baby. Maggie squeezed Olivia's hand under the table. Do not react. Do not give him anything. Olivia forced her expression to remain neutral, but inside she was screaming. 5 years. 5 years I spent being gaslit and manipulated and isolated and controlled. 5 years I spent believing I was crazy because he told me I was crazy. And now he is going to stand in this courtroom and do it again in front of the whole world. Vance finished his opening with a flourish. We ask only for justice, Your Honor, for the truth to be heard and for my client's reputation to be protected from further damage. He returned to his seat and Sabrina gave him an approving smile. Adrian's expression remained unchanged, as if this were all beneath him. Judge Wells nodded slightly. Miss Sullivan, your opening statement. Maggie rose from her chair with the kind of quiet confidence that comes from experience. She did not play to the cameras. She did not pace or gesture dramatically. She simply walked to the center of the room and spoke directly to the judge. Your Honor, my opposing counsel has painted a very pretty picture. A devoted husband, a troubled wife, a simple story with a simple villain. But this case is not simple, and my client is not a villain. She paused, letting the words settle. Olivia Mercer graduated near the top of her class at Emory Law School. She was a rising star at one of Atlanta's most prestigious firms before she met Adrian Cole. She was brilliant, ambitious, and independent. And within 2 years of marriage, she had given up her career, lost contact with most of her friends, and found herself trapped in a home where every dollar she spent was monitored. Every move she made was questioned, and every concern she raised was dismissed as paranoia. Olivia felt tears prick at her eyes. Hearing her own story spoken out loud in this room was overwhelming. Maggie continued, this is not a case about a jealous wife and a devoted husband. This is a case about coercive control, about a pattern of abuse that leaves no visible bruises but destroys a person from the inside out. My client will present evidence of financial manipulation, emotional abuse, and a systematic campaign to isolate her from everyone who might have helped her see the truth. She turned slightly to include the gallery. And yes, there was infidelity, 3 years of it, with the woman currently sitting at the defense table treating this courtroom like her personal fashion runway. A few spectators stifled laughter. Sabrina's face flushed with anger. Maggie faced the judge again. My client is not asking for sympathy. She is asking for justice, for the right to raise her child without fear, for the chance to rebuild the life that was systematically dismantled by a man who promised to love and protect her. She returned to her seat, and Olivia exhaled a breath she had not realized she was holding. That was perfect, she whispered. Maggie gave her a small smile. We are just getting started. Judge Wells made a note on his pad. We will take a 15-minute recess before beginning testimony. Court is adjourned until 10:30. The gallery erupted in murmurs as people stood and stretched. Reporters typed furiously on their phones. Spectators whispered to each other. Olivia remained seated, suddenly exhausted. The baby was kicking again, sensing her stress. I need water, she told Maggie. I will be right back. Maggie nodded. Do not engage with anyone, especially not her. Olivia stood carefully and made her way toward the water fountain near the side door. Her back ached, her feet were swollen, every step felt like an effort. She had almost reached the fountain when a voice stopped her cold. Well, if it is not the practiced wife. Olivia turned slowly. Sabrina stood in the aisle, arms crossed, a cruel smile playing at her lips. She had positioned herself to block Olivia's path, close enough to whisper, but far enough that it might not be obvious to cameras. Olivia kept her voice calm. I have nothing to say to you, Sabrina laughed. Of course you do not. What could you possibly say? That I stole your husband? Please. You cannot steal something that was never really yours. Olivia tried to move past her, but Sabrina stepped into her path again. You know what Adrian calls you? The incubator. That is all you ever were to him, a vessel to carry his air. Once that baby is born, you will be completely irrelevant. Olivia felt her hands trembling. She clasped them together, willing herself not to react. I am walking away now, she said quietly, and you are going to let me. She turned her back on Sabrina and took one step toward the fountain. Walk away, you cow. And then she felt it. The impact against her lower back, just above her hip, sharp and sudden and deliberate. A kick, delivered with the pointed toe of a designer shoe. Olivia stumbled forward, her balance compromised by her pregnancy. Her hand flew to her belly as she caught herself against a bench, gasping with shock and pain. The baby kicked frantically inside her, responding to the sudden movement and the surge of adrenaline flooding her system. For a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then the courtroom exploded. The screams came from everywhere at once. "Oh my God, did you see that? She kicked her! She kicked a pregnant woman! Someone call security! Call an ambulance!" Olivia gripped the wooden bench, fighting to stay upright. Pain radiated from the point of impact, spreading across her lower back and around to her belly. The baby was moving frantically now, twisting and kicking in response to the stress. "Please be okay," she thought desperately. "Please, please be okay." She could hear phone cameras clicking all around her, could see the red lights of video recording from multiple angles. In this moment of violation and terror, she was also being documented. "Good," some distant part of her mind whispered. "Let them see. Let everyone see what she did." Sabrina stood frozen in the aisle, her expression shifting rapidly from triumph to calculation. She had not expected this reaction, had not anticipated that her moment of cruelty would be witnessed by dozens of people with phones in their hands. Her face rearranged itself into theatrical innocence. "She attacked me first," Sabrina cried out, her voice pitched to Carrie. "I was defending myself. Did you all see? She came at me." The lie was so blatant, so obviously false, that several spectators actually laughed in disbelief. An elderly woman in the second row pointed a gnarled finger at Sabrina. "Liar. We all saw you walk up to her. We all saw you kick her in the back. You ought to be ashamed of yourself." Sabrina's composure cracked slightly. She looked around for support and found none. Even the reporters who might have been sympathetic to a juicy scandal were staring at her with undisguised horror. Then Adrian was there, pushing through the crowd to reach Sabrina. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders in a protective gesture that made Olivia's stomach turn. "Everyone calm down," he said loudly, his voice carrying that smooth authority he used in business negotiations. "There has been a misunderstanding. My wife has always been clumsy." She tripped. Sabrina was trying to help her. The audacity of the lie stunned the room into momentary silence. Then Maggie's voice cut through like a blade. "She was 10 feet away when your wife fell, Mr. Cole. We have at least 20 witnesses who saw exactly what happened. Your girlfriend kicked a pregnant woman in the back, and you are standing here defending her." Adrian's expression flickered with annoyance, but he did not back down. "You are misinterpreting the situation. This is clearly an attempt to garner sympathy." A man in the gallery held up his phone. "I have the whole thing on video, clear as day. She walked up, she said something, and then she kicked her." "That is assault." Another woman raised her phone. "Me too. Got it from a different angle." More hands went up around the room. 5 people, 10, at least 15 spectators had captured the moment on their phones. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. Videos can be misleading. Context can be manipulated. Olivia finally found her voice. She pushed herself upright, one hand still pressed against her belly. The pain was fading slightly, replaced by something else. Something hot and furious. "You are going to stand there," she said quietly, "and tell all these people that they did not see what they saw, that their own eyes deceived them, that their own cameras lied." She took a shaky step toward him. "That is what you have been doing to me for 5 years, Adrian. Telling me I did not see what I saw. Telling me I did not hear what I heard. Telling me I was crazy for trusting my own perception." Her voice grew stronger with each word. "But there are 20 witnesses now, 20 cameras, 20 people who know exactly what your girlfriend just did. You cannot gaslight an entire courtroom." The gallery murmured in approval. A few people actually applauded before the bailiff called for order. Adrian's mask slipped for just a moment. Olivia saw the rage beneath it, the fury at being challenged, at being questioned, at losing control of the narrative. Then the mask was back in place. "We will discuss this with the judge," he said coldly. "I am sure cooler heads will prevail." He steered Sabrina toward the defense table. shielding her from the hostile stares of the gallery. Sabrina clung to his arm, her earlier confidence completely shattered. Maggie reached Olivia's side, her face tight with concern. "Are you hurt? Do you need medical attention?" "I do not know." Olivia pressed her hand against her belly, feeling for movement. "The baby is still kicking. That is good, right? Movement is good? Movement is good, but we should have you checked. I am calling paramedics." "No," Olivia grabbed Maggie's arm. "Not yet. I am not leaving this courtroom. If I leave now, he wins. He gets to spin this however he wants." "Olivia, your health and your baby's health are more important than this case." Olivia shook her head firmly. "I have waited 5 years for this day. I have survived 5 years of his manipulation. I am not going to let his mistress's tantrum take this moment away from me." We continue. Maggie studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right, but the moment you feel anything concerning, anything at all, we stop. Agreed?" "Agreed." The bailiff was restoring order, directing people back to their seats. The energy in the room had shifted dramatically. Before the assault, this had been a celebrity divorce case, entertainment for the masses. Now it was something else entirely. Now it was a reckoning. Judge Wells had returned to his bench during the commotion. His face was pale, his expression stricken. Olivia realized with a jolt that he had witnessed everything, had watched his daughter be attacked and had been powerless to stop it. For just a moment their eyes met. Something passed between them. Some unspoken understanding that Olivia could not quite decipher. Then the judge's face hardened with professional resolve. "Order," he said, his voice sharp enough to silence the remaining murmurs. "I will have order in this courtroom." Everyone settled into their seats. The tension was so thick it felt difficult to breathe. Judge Wells turned his gaze toward Sabrina. "Miss Hart, I witnessed what just occurred. I have also been informed that multiple recordings exist of the incident. Would you care to explain your actions?" Sabrina rose slightly from her chair, her voice quivering with manufactured distress. "Your Honor, it was an accident. I was trying to walk past her, and my foot caught on the carpet. I lost my balance and accidentally made contact with her. I would never intentionally hurt a pregnant woman." The lie hung in the air like a bad smell. Judge Wells' expression did not change. "I see, Baising. And the words you exchanged with Mrs. Cole just before this accident?" Sabrina blinked. "I was just trying to apologize in advance for any awkwardness. I know this situation is difficult for everyone." Several spectators made sounds of disbelief. The elderly woman who had called Sabrina a liar earlier muttered something unprintable under her breath. Judge Wells made a note on his pad. "Miss Hart, you are not a party to this divorce proceeding. You are present only as a guest of the respondent. Given what has just occurred, I am ordering you to have no further contact with the petitioner for the duration of these proceedings. Any violation of this order will result in your immediate removal and potential criminal charges." Sabrina's face flushed with anger. "But Your Honor, she provoked me. She has been making my life impossible for months with her accusations and her victim act." Maggie stood. "Your Honor, my client would like to note for the record that she did not speak to Miss Hart before the assault. She was walking to the water fountain. Miss Hart approached her, initiated conversation, and then committed battery against a pregnant woman in a courtroom full of witnesses." Judge Wells nodded. "So noted." He turned back to Sabrina, his voice colder now. "Miss Hart, I strongly advise you to remain silent for the remainder of these proceedings. Anything you say can and will be used against you if criminal charges are filed." Sabrina's mouth opened, then closed. She looked at Adrian for support, but he was staring straight ahead, his expression unreadable. For the first time, she seemed to understand that she might have made a serious mistake. Good, Olivia thought. Let her feel afraid. Let her understand what it is like to be vulnerable. Judge Wells addressed the room. "Paramedics have been called to examine Mrs. Cole. We will take a brief recess until they arrive and can confirm that she and her baby are unharmed. Court will reconvene in 20 minutes. He banged the gavel and the room erupted again in conversation. Olivia sank back into her chair, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline that had kept her upright was fading, leaving behind an overwhelming weariness. Maggie sat beside her, voice low. That was incredibly brave. "But Olivia, are you sure you are all right?" Olivia placed both hands on her belly, feeling the steady rhythm of kicks from within. The baby was calming down now, the frantic movements settling into normal activity. "I am okay," she said. "We are okay." But even as she spoke the words, she wondered if they were true. The physical assault had been shocking, but it was not the real danger. The real danger was Adrian and his army of lawyers and PR specialists, all working to paint her as the villain. The video would help. 20 witnesses would help. But men like Adrian did not lose gracefully. They did not admit defeat. They pivoted, adapted, found new angles of attack. This is not over, Olivia thought, watching Adrian confer with his attorney at the defense table. This is just beginning. The paramedics arrived within minutes, their presence adding another layer of chaos to an already chaotic morning. They checked Olivia's vitals, listened to the baby's heartbeat with a portable Doppler, and asked her a series of questions about pain, bleeding, and fetal movement. "Heartbeat is strong," one of them reported. 142 beats per minute, right in the normal range. Olivia exhaled with relief, tears springing to her eyes. "Thank you. Thank God." The paramedic gave her a sympathetic smile. "Baby seems feisty in there. That is a good sign. But you really should go to the hospital for a full examination. Just to be safe." Olivia shook her head. "I cannot leave. Not now." The paramedic exchanged a glance with his partner, then sighed. "I cannot force you, ma'am, but stress is not good for pregnancy, and this environment seems pretty stressful." "I am aware." Olivia touched her belly gently. "But sometimes we have to fight, even when it is hard, even when it is scary. My baby needs to know that her mother did not back down." The paramedic nodded slowly. "All right, but if you feel any contractions, any bleeding, any decrease in fetal movement, you need to get to a hospital immediately." "I understand." The paramedics packed up their equipment and left. Maggie returned to Olivia's side with a cup of water and a concerned expression. "You are sure about this?" "I am Schwanda." Maggie nodded and sat down. "Then let me tell you what is happening. The video of the assault has gone viral." Olivia blinked. "What do you mean, viral?" Maggie held up her phone. "Someone in the gallery posted it on Twitter while the paramedics were checking you. It has been shared over 100,000 times in the last 15 minutes. It is trending nationally. Billionaire's mistress kicks pregnant wife is the #1 topic in the country right now." Olivia stared at the screen, watching a replay of the moment Sabrina's foot connected with her back. Seeing it from the outside was surreal, like watching something that had happened to someone else. The comments were flooding in. Hundreds per second. Thousands. "That poor woman. What kind of monster kicks a pregnant lady? Lock her up. That is assault. The husband is worse. Look at him defending her. I hope she takes him for everything." For the first time all day, hope flickered in Olivia's chest. "Maybe this changes things," she said quietly. "Maybe people finally see what he is." Maggie's expression was cautious. "It helps. Public opinion matters." But Olivia, men like Adrian do not accept defeat. They have resources we can not imagine. Do not celebrate yet. As if on cue, Adrian's attorney stood and approached the bench. Judge Wells had returned, and the courtroom was settling back into session. "Your Honor," Vance said smoothly, "I need to bring an urgent matter to the court's attention." "Proceed." "My client has been made aware that video recordings of the incident in this courtroom are being circulated on social media. These recordings are being presented without context and are causing immediate and severe damage to my client's reputation and business interests." Judge Wells's expression remained neutral. "What relief are you seeking?" "We have filed an emergency motion with the Superior Court for an injunction requiring all social media platforms to remove these recordings pending investigation." The motion was granted 15 minutes ago. Maggie shot to her feet. "Your Honor, this is outrageous. Those recordings are evidence of a crime committed in this very courtroom. The public has every right to see them." Vance smiled thinly. "The recordings are potentially defamatory. They present a one-sided view of an incident that may have been provoked or staged." "Staged?" Maggie's voice rose with incredulity. "Your client's mistress kicked a pregnant woman in full view of 20 witnesses." "Allegedly kicked," Vance corrected. "And we have evidence to suggest this incident may have been manufactured for publicity." Judge Wells raised a hand. "What evidence?" Vance nodded to someone at the back of the room. A screen was set up, and a video began playing. Security footage from the courthouse lobby that morning, showing Olivia on her phone gesturing as she talked. "We have had this audio enhanced and analyzed," Vance said. "Mrs. Cole can clearly be heard saying, quote, 'Make sure you are recording. I need this to look bad,' end quote." The gallery murmured. A few faces that had been sympathetic moments ago now looked uncertain. Olivia felt her stomach drop. "That is not what I said. I was talking to my sister about my testimony. I said, make sure you are recording, meaning recording notes. I said I need to look bad, meaning I was nervous about how I would come across." Vance smiled. A convenient reinterpretation. "It is the truth." Judge Wells banged his gavel. "Order, Mrs. Cole, you will have the opportunity to respond formally. For now, I am required to acknowledge that an injunction has been issued by a higher court. The videos will be removed pending investigation." Maggie sat down heavily, her jaw tight with frustration. She leaned close to Olivia. They moved fast. They had this ready. They knew something might happen, and they prepared. Olivia felt the brief flame of hope guttering in her chest. How was that possible? They could not have known Sabrina would attack me. Maggie's eyes narrowed, unless they planned it. The thought was chilling. Had Sabrina been instructed to provoke Olivia? To create an incident that could be spun in their favor? It seemed paranoid, but then again, Olivia had learned that paranoid thoughts about Adrian usually turned out to be true. Over the next hour, Olivia watched as the narrative shifted around her. Adrian's PR team released a statement expressing concern for Olivia's well-being, while subtly implying that she had emotional problems that might lead her to stage dramatic incidents. News coverage that had been sympathetic began adding qualifiers. Some now, others have questioned. The truth was being buried under a mountain of money and influence, and there was nothing Olivia could do to stop it. When the court recessed for lunch, Maggie guided Olivia to a private room away from the cameras and spectators. She ordered food that neither of them would eat and poured water that would go untouched. "This is what he does," Olivia said quietly. "This is what he has always done. Twist reality until I do not know which way is up. Make everyone believe his version until I start doubting myself." Maggie reached across the table and took her hand. "Listen to me, I have been doing this work for 20 years. I have seen men like Adrian before. They seem invincible, they seem untouchable. But they always make mistakes. Their arrogance is their weakness. What if his arrogance is not enough? What if he wins? Then we appeal. We file new motions. We take it to the media, to other courts, to anyone who will listen. Olivia, I did not take this case because it was easy. I took it because what he did to you matters. What he is doing to you matters. And I do not abandon my clients." Olivia felt tears slipping down her cheeks. She had spent so many years alone, facing Adrian's cruelty, without support, without witnesses. And now here was this woman she barely knew, fighting for her like her life depended on it. "Why?" she whispered. "Why do you care so much?" Maggie was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Because 23 years ago, I was you. Different man, same tactics, same gaslighting, same isolation, same gradual destruction of everything I believed about myself. I almost did not survive it." Her voice hardened. "But I did, and I made myself a promise. I would spend the rest of my career making sure men like that faced consequences, making sure women like us had someone in our corner." Olivia squeezed her hand. "Thank you. Do not thank me yet." Maggie's expression grew determined. "This afternoon we fight back. They want to suppress the video. Fine. We have something they do not know about, something that cannot be suppressed or spun." "What?" Maggie smiled grimly. "Your evidence. Your documentation. 8 months of preparation. They think they are fighting a hysterical pregnant woman. They have no idea they are fighting a lawyer." The afternoon session began with Olivia on the witness stand. She had rehearsed this moment countless times with Maggie, had practiced staying calm, speaking clearly, presenting her evidence in a logical sequence. But sitting there under the gaze of the judge who might be her father, facing the man who had systematically destroyed her sense of self, all that preparation felt suddenly inadequate. "You can do this," she told herself. "You have survived worse than a few questions." Maggie approached the stand with a reassuring nod. "Mrs. Cole, please describe for the court how you met your husband." Olivia took a breath. I met Adrian at a charity gala 6 years ago. I was working as an associate at Morrison and Partners, a law firm in Buckhead. He was charming, attentive, persistent. He sent flowers to my office every day for a month. He took me to dinner at restaurants I could never have afforded. He made me feel special. And when did you marry? After a year of dating. Looking back, I realized he pushed for the wedding very quickly. At the time, I thought it was romantic. Now I understand it was about control. Vance stirred at the defense table but did not object. Maggie continued, "Can you describe how your marriage changed after the wedding?" Olivia steadied herself. At first, everything seemed perfect, but within a few months, things started shifting. Small things at first. He would question my spending, even though I had my own income. He would make comments about my friends, suggesting they were jealous of me or trying to undermine our marriage. He would correct my memories of conversations, insisting I had misunderstood or misremembered. She looked directly at Adrian. He would tell me I was too sensitive, too emotional, too dramatic. He would say he was only trying to help me see reality clearly, and I believed him. For years, I believed him. The gallery was silent, listening intently. Maggie asked, "Did Mr. Cole ever physically harm you?" Olivia hesitated. He never hit me in a way that left obvious marks. But there were incidents. Grabbing my arm hard enough to bruise, blocking doorways so I could not leave a room. Once, he threw a glass against the wall next to my head. He always apologized afterward, said I had provoked him, that he would never do it again. She pulled out the flash drive. I documented everything. Text messages showing his controlling behavior. Bank records proving he hid assets and monitored my spending. Photographs of bruises I told myself were accidents. Recordings of conversations where he threatened to destroy me if I ever tried to leave. Maggie entered the flash drive into evidence. The courtroom waited as the contents were displayed on screen. Text messages appeared first. From Adrian to Olivia, dated 2 years ago. "If you ever tell anyone about our private matters, I will make sure you never see a penny. You will be living on the streets and everyone will know you are crazy." From Adrian 1 year ago. "Your friends are filling your head with poison. If you insist on seeing them, do not bother coming home." From Adrian 6 months ago. "You are nothing without me. Remember that." The gallery murmured with each revelation. Olivia watched Adrian's face, looking for any sign of shame or remorse. There was none. He simply looked annoyed, as if this were all a minor inconvenience. Maggie moved to the financial records. These documents show hidden accounts in offshore banks totaling $43 million, assets that were not disclosed during discovery. Objection. Vance stood, his voice sharp. "Those records were obtained illegally. We moved to suppress." Judge Wells turned to Maggie. "Counselor, how did your client obtain these financial records?" Olivia's heart sank. This was the weakness in her case, the flaw Adrian's team had been waiting to exploit. Maggie answered carefully. "My client hired a forensic accountant to investigate discrepancies in the financial disclosures provided by Mr. Cole. The accountant discovered evidence of hidden assets." Vance pounced. "A forensic accountant who accessed private financial systems without authorization. That is hacking, Your Honor, a federal crime. Not only should this evidence be suppressed, but Mrs. Cole herself should face criminal charges." The room erupted in murmurs. Olivia felt the floor dropping away beneath her. She had known this was a risk, had debated it with Maggie for weeks. In the end, they had decided the evidence was worth the danger. But now, watching the triumph on Adrian's face, she was not so sure. Judge Wells looked troubled. "This presents significant legal complications. The financial evidence may have been obtained through improper means." "Your Honor," Maggie interjected, "the manner of collection does not change the truth of the contents. Mr. Cole has hidden $43 million from his wife and from this court. It changes whether the truth can be admitted as evidence," Vance countered, "and it raises serious questions about Mrs. Cole's judgment and criminal liability." Judge Wells made a note. "I am ruling that the financial records are excluded pending a determination of how they were obtained. The other evidence, text messages and photographs, may remain for now." Olivia closed her eyes. Half her case, the most damning half, had just been thrown out. But Adrian was not finished. Vance approached the bench with a new folder. Your Honor, we would like to submit additional evidence regarding Mrs. Cole's mental state and fitness to parent. Olivia's blood ran cold. What new horror was this? A recording began playing through the courtroom speakers, and Olivia recognized the voice immediately, her own voice, from therapy sessions. Some days I do not want to wake up, her recorded self said. Some days I think everyone would be better off if I just disappeared. I think about driving off the bridge on my way home. I think about swallowing all the pills in the medicine cabinet. The courtroom went deadly silent. Olivia could not breathe. Those sessions, those moments of raw vulnerability when she had shared her darkest thoughts with someone she trusted completely. Adrian had recorded them, had invaded the one space where she thought she was safe. This is from 3 months into her pregnancy, Vance said. Mrs. Cole has documented suicidal ideation. We move for immediate psychological evaluation and express grave concerns about her ability to safely parent. Tears were streaming down Olivia's face now, and she could not stop them. The violation was total. The betrayal was complete. Maggie was on her feet, her voice shaking with fury. This is a clear violation of doctor-patient privilege. This recording is inadmissible. Vance smiled. The recording was made by Mr. Cole out of genuine concern for his wife's well-being and the safety of his unborn child. He feared for their lives. He had a right to know if she was a danger to herself or their baby. He bugged my therapist's office, Olivia choked out. He violated my privacy in the most intimate way possible. Vance shrugged. We have different perspectives on the situation. Judge Wells looked physically ill. He stared at the recording device as if it were a snake that had suddenly appeared on his bench. This evidence presents significant privilege concerns, he said slowly. However, given the nature of the statements and their implications for child welfare, I cannot exclude it entirely without further review. We will recess until tomorrow morning. He banged the gavel, and the courtroom dissolved into chaos. Olivia sat on the witness stand, unable to move. Her most private pain, her darkest moments, had been exposed to the world, and the man who had driven her to those thoughts was sitting 20 feet away, looking satisfied. I was right all along, she thought numbly. There was nowhere safe. There was no one I could trust. He had infiltrated everything. Maggie reached her side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Come on, let us get you out of here. But as they walked toward the exit, Olivia caught sight of her father's face behind the bench, and what she saw there shocked her. Rage. Pure, undisguised rage, not the cold anger of a judge whose courtroom had been disrupted. Something much more personal, much more powerful. He knows what it feels like to be powerless, Olivia realized. He knows what it is like to watch someone you love being destroyed and not be able to stop it. For 30 years, she had believed her father abandoned her because he did not care. Now, looking at his face, she wondered if she had been wrong about everything. Olivia did not sleep that night. She lay in her small apartment, the one she had rented after finally finding the courage to leave the mansion, and stared at the ceiling. The baby moved restlessly, responding to her distress. Tomorrow, everything would continue. Tomorrow, Adrian would pile on more evidence of her instability. Tomorrow, his lawyers would argue that she was unfit to parent. Tomorrow, she might lose the only thing that still mattered. How did I get here, she wondered. How did I go from a promising attorney with a bright future to a pregnant woman fighting just to keep her child? She knew the answer, of course. She had gotten here one compromise at a time, one silence at a time, one excuse at a time. He is just stressed from work. He did not mean it that way. Maybe I am being too sensitive. If I just try harder, things will get better. 1,000 small surrenders that had added up to complete captivity. When morning came, Olivia forced herself through the motions of getting ready. She ate breakfast she did not taste. She dressed in a simple gray dress that felt like armor. She drove to the courthouse with her hands white-knuckled on the wheel. Maggie met her at the door, her expression grim. There is something you need to know. They have called a witness we did not expect. Who? Your mother. Olivia felt the blood drain from her face. My mother? She cannot. She would not. She received a subpoena this morning. She is on their witness list. Why would Adrian call my mother? Maggie's expression told her the answer before the words came. Because she is going to testify against you. The courtroom seemed different today, smaller somehow, the walls pressing in. Olivia took her place at the plaintiff's table and waited for whatever fresh nightmare Adrian had prepared. She did not have to wait long. When the session began, Vance stood with the confidence of a man about to deliver a killing blow. Your Honor, we call Linda Mercer to the stand. The doors at the back of the courtroom opened, and Olivia's mother walked in. Linda Mercer was 58 years old, with steel gray hair and a face that had hardened over the years into permanent disapproval. She walked past Olivia without looking at her, climbed to the witness stand, and placed her hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Olivia's hands were shaking. Whatever was about to happen, it was going to be bad, going to be. Vance approached with a sympathetic expression. Mrs. Mercer, thank you for being here today. I know this must be difficult. Linda nodded stiffly. It is my duty. Can you describe your relationship with your daughter? Linda's voice was flat, emotionless. Olivia has always been difficult. Even as a child, she was dramatic and attention-seeking. She would make up stories, exaggerate problems, turn small issues into major crises. Olivia felt like she had been punched in the stomach. This was not true. None of this was true. Can you give us examples? When she was 12, she claimed a teacher had touched her inappropriately. It turned out she had misinterpreted a pat on the shoulder. When she was 16, she said a boyfriend had hit her, but there was never any evidence. She has always had a tendency to see herself as a victim. Olivia stood, her voice cracking. That is not true, Mom. Why are you lying? Judge Wells banged his gavel. Mr. Cole, you will remain seated and silent until you are called upon. Olivia sank back into her chair, tears streaming down her face. Maggie gripped her arm, whispering urgently, Do not let them see you break. Vance continued, his voice dripping with false sympathy. Mrs. Mercer, you raised Olivia alone after her father left. Is that correct? Linda nodded. Yes, her father abandoned us when she was 3. Can you tell us about him? Linda's expression flickered with something. Discomfort, perhaps, or guilt. Harrison was a complicated man. He was more interested in his career than in his family. Vance leaned forward, and is Judge Harrison Wells, who is presiding over this case, the same man? The courtroom went still. Linda's voice dropped. Yes. Judge Wells's face had gone completely white. His hands gripped the edge of the bench as if to keep himself from falling. Vance smiled like a shark scenting blood. So Olivia has a history of believing things that are not true? Of distorting reality based on what she has been told? Linda hesitated, glancing at her daughter for the first time. I suppose you could say that. And given her mental health struggles, the suicidal ideation we heard about yesterday, would you say you have concerns about her ability to parent? I have always had concerns about Olivia's stability. Olivia could not breathe. Her own mother, the woman who had raised her, who had shaped her understanding of the world, was sitting on that stand destroying her. Vance turned to the judge. No further questions. Maggie rose slowly. Her face was controlled, but Olivia could see the fury beneath the surface. Mrs. Mercer, you testified that Judge Wells abandoned your family. Is that accurate? Linda's eyes darted toward the bench. He left. That is what happened. Is it? Or did you file false allegations against him to prevent him from seeing his daughter? Objection, Vance called out. This is beyond the scope of direct examination. Judge Wells spoke, his voice strained. Overruled. The witness will answer. Linda's composure cracked. I did what I had to do to protect my daughter. From what? Maggie pressed. From a father who loved her? From a man who spent 15 years trying to reconnect with his child? He would have taken her away from me. So you lied. You told Olivia her father abandoned her, when in fact you drove him away with false accusations. I protected her. Maggie's voice rose. You alienated her from her father. You shaped her entire identity around a lie. And now you sit on that stand and call her unstable for believing the stories you told her. Linda's face crumbled. I did what I thought was best. Maggie turned to the judge. Your Honor, I move to strike Mrs. Mercer's testimony. She has admitted to a pattern of deception regarding this family. Her credibility is non-existent. Before Judge Wells could respond, Vance jumped in. Regardless of ancient family history, the facts remain. Mrs. Cole has documented mental health struggles. Her own mother has testified to her instability. We renew our motion for psychiatric evaluation and emergency custody determination. Olivia felt herself shattering. This was rock bottom. This was the moment when everything fell apart. And then something unexpected happened. Judge Wells stood from behind the bench. His face was pale, his hands trembling slightly, but his voice was strong. This court will take a 30-minute recess. When we return, I have a statement to make. He banged the gavel and disappeared through the door behind the bench. The courtroom exploded in confused murmurs. Olivia sat frozen, staring at the empty bench. What just happened? Maggie shook her head slowly. I do not know, but something tells me the game is about to change. The 30 minutes felt like 30 hours. Olivia sat in the private room Maggie had secured, her hands wrapped around a cup of tea that had long since gone cold. Her mother's words echoed in her head, poisonous and devastating. Olivia has always been difficult, dramatic, attention-seeking. Was it true? Had she always been unstable? Always been the problem? Had Adrian simply seen what her mother had seen? The fundamental brokenness at her core? Stop, Maggie's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. I can see where your mind is going, and you need to stop. She sat beside Olivia. There are some things I need you to understand before we go back in there. Everything is not lost. In fact, I think we are about to see something remarkable. What do you mean? Think about what just happened. Your mother admitted to lying about your father. She admitted to filing false allegations. She admitted to deliberately alienating you from him. So that is a massive credibility problem for the defense. They called her to prove you are unstable, but instead she proved that she is a manipulator who shapes reality to serve her own needs. The apple does not fall far from the tree argument just backfired spectacularly. Olivia shook her head. But she is still my mother. People will believe a mother over a daughter. Normally, yes, but not when the mother contradicts herself on the stand. Not when she admits to decades of deception. And not when, Maggie paused, choosing her words carefully. Not when the judge presiding over this case has personal knowledge of those deceptions. Olivia looked up sharply. You think he is going to say something? I think he has been waiting 30 years to say something. And I think today might be the day. The bailiff appeared at the door. Court is resuming. Olivia stood on shaky legs. Whatever happens in there, thank you for everything. Maggie squeezed her shoulder. Save the thanks for after we win. The courtroom was even more crowded than before. Word had spread about the dramatic revelations, and every seat was filled. Reporters lined the walls, cameras focused on the bench. Judge Wells emerged from the back door, and something about him was different. He moved more slowly, more deliberately. When he reached the bench, he did not sit down. He stood facing the room. Before we continue, I have a statement to make. The room fell absolutely silent. Judge Wells took a breath. It has become apparent that I have a personal connection to this case that I should have disclosed from the beginning. Olivia Mercer Cole is my daughter. The gallery erupted. Reporters typed frantically. Spectators whispered to each other. Wells raised a hand for silence. I did not recuse myself from this case for reasons I will explain. 30 years ago, I was married to Linda Mercer. We had a daughter together. When our marriage ended, Linda made allegations against me that were later determined to be false. Despite this, she was granted full custody, and I was effectively prevented from having any relationship with my child. His voice cracked slightly. For 15 years, I tried to see Olivia. Every birthday, every holiday, every milestone. Linda blocked every attempt. She poisoned my daughter against me, told her I had abandoned them when in fact I had fought with everything I had to remain in her life. Olivia felt tears streaming down her face. The story she had believed her entire life was crumbling around her, but what was emerging in its place was something she had never dared to hope for. Wells continued, when I saw Olivia's name on this docket, I should have recused myself. Any ethical judge would have. But I could not, because there was something I needed to tell her, something I have been waiting 30 years to say. He turned to look directly at Olivia. I never abandoned you. I never stopped loving you. And I have watched from a distance as you have endured the same kind of manipulation and control that was used to separate us. I could not save you then, but I can make sure you have a fair hearing now. Vance stood, his voice outraged. Your Honor, this is completely improper. You must recuse yourself immediately. This entire proceeding is compromised. Wells turned his cold gaze toward the defense table. Mr. Vance, you are correct that I should recuse myself, and I will, after I make one final ruling. His voice hardened. I have watched over the past 2 days as your client has manipulated evidence, intimidated witnesses, and allowed his mistress to physically assault a pregnant woman in my courtroom. I have seen enough to know that justice will not be served by simply stepping aside. But the law, Vance sputtered. I am well aware of the law, and the law allows me to make certain determinations before recusing myself. Wells picked up a document from his bench. Based on the testimony and evidence presented, I am granting an emergency protective order for Mrs. Cole and her unborn child. Mr. Cole is prohibited from any contact, direct or indirect, with the petitioner. You cannot do this, Adrian burst out, jumping to his feet. This is a setup. This whole thing is a conspiracy. Wells's voice was ice. Sit down, Mr. Cole, or I will have you removed. Adrian sat, his face purple with rage. Wells continued. Furthermore, based on the assault witnessed yesterday and the pattern of abuse documented in testimony, I am granting emergency temporary custody of the unborn child to Mrs. Cole upon birth. This ruling may be appealed before my successor, but it stands for now. The courtroom was in Kate. Reporters shouted questions, spectators cheered or booed depending on their allegiances. Through it all, Olivia sat stunned, unable to process what was happening. Her father. He was her father. He had never abandoned her. And now, after 30 years of silence, he was using the last power he had to protect her. It was not over. The case would continue with a new judge. Adrian would appeal everything. The battle was far from won. But in this moment, sitting in this courtroom, Olivia felt something she had not felt in years. She felt like she had a father again. The recess that followed Judge Wells's announcement stretched into hours. Lawyers conferred, reporters filed stories. Spectators milled about, discussing the unprecedented turn of events. Olivia sat in the private room, emotionally exhausted but somehow lighter than she had been in days. Maggie had stepped out to handle press inquiries, leaving her alone with her thoughts. A knock came at the door. Come in, Olivia called, expecting Maggie. Instead, the woman from the gallery stepped inside. The elegant stranger who had been watching Olivia with such intensity since the first day. She was in her mid-40s, beautifully dressed, with auburn hair and green eyes that held deep wells of pain. May I sit? The woman asked. Olivia hesitated, then nodded. The woman settled into the chair across from her, hands folded in her lap. My name is Caroline Ashford, but 15 years ago, I was Caroline Cole, Adrian's first wife. Olivia's breath caught. His first wife. Adrian had mentioned her exactly once, dismissing her as a gold digger who had tried to ruin him. Olivia had never questioned the story. Carolyn saw her reaction and smiled sadly. Let me guess. He told you I was crazy, that I made false accusations, that I tried to destroy him. Something like that. He said the same things about me that he is saying about you now, that I was unstable, emotional, paranoid, that I could not be trusted, that I needed help he could not provide. She leaned forward. But Olivia, I was not crazy. I was terrified, and I was right to be. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine. What do you mean? Caroline was quiet for a moment, gathering herself. My brother Thomas was Adrian's first business partner. They started their company together, built it from nothing. But Thomas discovered that Adrian was embezzling money, millions of dollars hidden in offshore accounts. The same accounts Olivia had found. The evidence that had been thrown out. Thomas was going to report him, Caroline continued. He drafted an email to the FBI, and 3 days later, he was dead. Boating accident, they called it. His body was never recovered. Olivia felt sick. You think Adrian killed him? I know Adrian killed him, and I have proof, her voice hardened. Thomas's laptop. I kept it hidden for 15 years. It has all his documentation, all his evidence, including a draft email dated the day before he died. Why did you not come forward before? Carolyn's eyes filled with tears, because Adrian told me if I ever said anything, he would kill me too. And I believed him. I was so afraid, Olivia. For years, I lived in terror. I moved across the country, changed my name, tried to disappear. She took Olivia's hands. But then I saw the news coverage of this case. I saw you, pregnant and alone, fighting the same monster I ran from. and I could not stay silent anymore. Olivia squeezed her hands. You came here to testify. I came here to stand with you. Carolyn's voice strengthened. I know what it feels like to be alone against someone like Adrian. I know how impossible it seems, but you are not alone anymore. The door opened again and another figure stepped inside. An elderly woman with silver hair and a cane. Olivia recognized her immediately. Eleanor Cole, Adrian's mother. Her presence here made no sense. Why would Adrian's mother be visiting his estranged wife? Eleanor moved slowly to join them, settling into a chair with the careful movements of the very old. She looked at Olivia with eyes that held decades of regret. I know you must hate me, she said quietly. You must think I raised a monster and did nothing to stop him. Olivia did not know how to respond. You would be partly right, Eleanor continued. I saw what my son was becoming. I saw the cruelty in him, the need for control, and I told myself it was not my fault, that I had raised him right, that he would grow out of it. She shook her head. I was wrong, and I have spent the last 8 months trying to make amends. Olivia blinked. What do you mean? Eleanor looked at her steadily. The forensic accountant you hired, the investigators who helped you gather evidence, the funds that paid for all of it. Understanding dawned. It was you. Eleanor nodded. I could not stand by and watch my son destroy another woman's life. I had to do something. I had to try on. 3 women, 3 generations, all wounded by the same man, all finally standing together. Olivia felt something shift inside her. A wall she had built to survive crumbling down. I do not understand, she whispered. Why would you help me? Why would you betray your own son? Eleanor's voice was heavy with sorrow. Because he is not my son anymore. The boy I raised is gone. What remains is something I do not recognize, something I cannot protect. She reached out and took Olivia's hand. You have a daughter growing inside you. Someday you will understand that a mother's love is not about blind loyalty. It is about doing what is right, even when it breaks your heart. The 3 of them sat in silence for a moment, connected by their shared pain and their shared resolve. Then Carolyn spoke. There is something else you should know, something that changes everything. Olivia looked at her. What? Sabrina Hart, the mistress. Carolyn's expression was grim. She is not what she appears to be. What do you mean? I mean she has been working with the FBI for the past 6 months, feeding them information about Adrian's illegal activities. She is an informant. Olivia felt the floor tilt beneath her. Sabrina, but she hates me. She kicked me. She has been trying to destroy me. Carolyn nodded, and she is about to destroy Adrian instead. The afternoon session began with a surprise. As the courtroom settled into silence, the doors burst open and Detective Rachel Morrison strode in, flanked by 2 uniformed officers. She was a woman in her early 40s with a no-nonsense bearing and a badge that gleamed at her hip. She walked directly to the front of the courtroom, ignoring the protests of lawyers and the gasps of spectators. Adrian Cole, she announced, her voice carrying to every corner of the room. You are under arrest for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy in the death of Thomas Ashford. You have the right to remain silent. The room exploded into chaos. Adrian shot to his feet, his face contorted with rage. This is absurd. On whose authority? On whose information? Detective Morrison looked toward the defense table, toward Sabrina Hart, who sat frozen with an expression Olivia had never seen on her face before. Not triumph, not cruelty, fear. Miss Hart, the detective said, would you like to explain? Every eye in the room turned to Sabrina. She stood slowly, her hands trembling. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she spoke. I am sorry, Adrian, but you were going to throw me away eventually. I just got there first. The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to detonate. Adrian's face went white, then red, then purple. You did this? You betrayed me? Sabrina's voice grew stronger. You made me terminate 2 pregnancies. You told me it was not the right time. You promised we would have children later. But the truth is, you never intended to give me anything. I was just another possession to you, just like Olivia. She looked at Olivia, and for the first time, something like humanity flickered in her eyes. I know you hate me. You should hate me. But I want you to know that everything I did in this courtroom, the kick, the taunting, the cruelty, it was part of the plan. It was supposed to make Adrian overconfident, make him show his true colors. Olivia stared at her, unable to process what she was hearing. Sabrina continued, I did not expect to actually hurt you. I thought I could pull back at the last second. But then you were there, and he was watching, and I wanted him to think I was totally on his side. She shook her head. I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. But I wanted you to know the truth. Officers moved toward Adrian. He lunged toward Olivia, but the bailiff intercepted him, wrestling him to the ground. This is not over, Adrian screamed. You are nothing without me. Nothing. Olivia stood, one hand on her belly, and looked down at the man who had tormented her for 5 years. Her voice was calm, steadier than it had ever been. I was nothing with you. Now I am free. The officers handcuffed Adrian and began leading him toward the door. He struggled, cursing, threatening, making promises of revenge that grew more desperate and more pathetic with every step. As he passed Caroline Ashford, she stepped into the aisle. He froze, recognizing her. Hello, Adrian, she said softly. I thought you should know. Thomas's laptop has been delivered to the FBI. Every email, every document, every piece of evidence. Your empire is finished. Adrian's screams echoed through the corridor long after the doors closed behind him. In the silence that followed, Olivia felt her legs give way. Maggie caught her, easing her into a chair. It is over, Maggie said. It is finally over. But before Olivia could respond, a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. She gasped, one hand flying to her belly. Something is wrong. Maggie's eyes widened. Contractions? I do not know, maybe. It is too early. The paramedics were summoned. The gallery buzzed with concern. And through it all, Olivia focused on the rhythm of her breathing, on the movement of the baby inside her. Hold on, little one, she thought. Just hold on a little longer. We are almost safe. The hospital room was quiet except for the soft beeping of monitors and the gentle murmur of voices in the hallway. Olivia lay in the bed, exhausted but at peace. In her arms, wrapped in a soft pink blanket, was her daughter. Perfect, beautiful, alive. The premature labor had been frightening, but the doctors had managed to slow it down. The baby had arrived 3 weeks early, small but healthy. Her cry had filled the delivery room like a promise. Olivia had named her Hope. Hope Wells Mercer, a name that carried meaning. A knock came at the door, and Judge Harrison Wells stepped inside. He had removed his robes, dressed now in a simple suit. He looked older than he had in the courtroom, more human, more vulnerable. May I? He asked quietly. Olivia nodded, and he approached the bed slowly. When he saw the baby, tears filled his eyes. She is beautiful, he whispered. She is perfect. He sat in the chair beside the bed, his hands clasped in his lap. I should tell you something I have not told anyone. Olivia looked at him, waiting. I am sick. Stage 4 cancer. The doctors give me 6 months, maybe less. He paused, gathering himself. I was not supposed to preside over any more cases. But when I saw your name on that docket, I knew I had to be there. I needed to tell you the truth. I needed you to know I never abandoned you. Olivia felt tears streaming down her face. She reached out and took his hand. I spent 30 years hating you, she said, believing you did not want me. And now I find out it was all a lie. I am sorry, he said. I should have fought harder. I should have found a way. You are here now. That is what matters. They sat in silence for a moment. Father and daughter reunited after decades of separation. The baby stirred in Olivia's arms, yawning, her tiny face scrunching up before relaxing again. Would you like to hold her? Olivia asked. Harrison Wells took his granddaughter in his arms with infinite gentleness. He looked down at her face, and something in his expression shifted. Peace, perhaps, or gratitude. Hope, he said softly. That is a good name. It is what you gave me, Olivia said. When I had none left, you gave me hope. He smiled, and for a moment Olivia could see the man he must have been before 30 years of loss had worn him down. A father who loved his daughter, a man who had never stopped fighting. You saved yourself, he said. I just made sure you had the chance. Maggie appeared at the door, phone in hand. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought you should know. The news is everywhere. Adrian's assets have been frozen. His board of directors has called an emergency meeting. 3 more women have come forward with the allegations of abuse. She smiled. It is over. He is finished. Olivia leaned back against her pillows, feeling the weight of the past 5 years finally lifting from her shoulders. It was not really over, of course. There would be trials and hearings and paperwork and all the mundane machinery of justice. But the hardest part was done. She had faced her monster, and she had won. The door opened again, and one more visitor entered. Sabrina Hart, looking smaller than she ever had before. No designer clothes, no arrogance, no cruelty in her eyes. Just a woman who had made terrible choices and was trying to find her way back. I know I am the last person you want to see, Sabrina said, but I needed to tell you something. Olivia studied her former enemy. There was no forgiveness yet. Maybe there never would be, but she was willing to listen. What? Sabrina's voice dropped. The FBI investigation is just the beginning. Adrian was not just hiding money, he was laundering it for some very dangerous people. People who do not like loose ends. She glanced over her shoulder, fear flickering in her eyes. They are going to try to silence him before he can talk. And if they think you know anything, what are you saying? I am saying be careful. Sabrina moved toward the door. The monster you married might have been protecting you from even bigger monsters without you knowing it. Now that he is gone, you are exposed. She paused at the threshold. I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not deserve it. But I wanted to warn you, some battles do not end with a courtroom victory. She slipped out before Olivia could respond. The room fell silent. Harrison looked at Olivia with concern. What did she mean by that? Olivia looked down at Hope, sleeping peacefully in her grandfather's arms. I do not know. But whatever it is, I am not afraid anymore. She had spent 5 years being controlled by fear. Fear of Adrian, fear of failure, fear of being alone. That fear had nearly destroyed her. But something had changed in that courtroom. Something fundamental. She had discovered that she was stronger than she knew. That she had allies she never expected. That the truth, no matter how hard it is to tell, is always worth fighting for. Whatever comes next, she said, I will face it. For her. She reached out and touched Hope's tiny hand. The baby's fingers curled around hers, impossibly small, impossibly perfect. My mother once told me that the strongest women are the ones who cry behind closed doors. But I think she was wrong about that too. The strongest women are the ones who keep going, even when everything seems impossible. Who stand up even when they have been knocked down. Who find hope even in the darkest places. I'm going to teach my daughter that strength. I am going to show her that she never has to be afraid to speak her truth. I am going to make sure she knows every single day that she is loved and wanted and worthy. That is my promise to her. That is my promise to myself. And it is a promise I intend to keep. The sun was setting outside the hospital window, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Olivia watched the light fade, feeling for the first time in years like she was exactly where she was supposed to be. The battle was over, a new life was beginning, and hope was already filling it with light. Before we dive in, do me a quick favor. If you love stories about karma, justice, and women who refuse to be silenced, hit that subscribe button and tap the bell so you never miss a story. Drop a comment telling me where you are listening from today. I love hearing from you. And if someone in your life needs to hear that they are stronger than they know, share this story with them. Now let us begin.